Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
The 34th session of the Senate in the third regular session of the 17th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Pampilo Lacson will lead the chamber in prayer.
Almighty and eternal God, we raise thy name as you call us to serve thy people. Make us a vessel of thy everlasting grace. Help us seek to be worthy of thy eternal love. This we ask in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Session is suspended. Session is resumed. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Onasan, Ontiveros, Lacson, Legarda, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 14 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a number of visitors here today with us in the session hall, Mr. President. starting with the Governor of Palawan is here once again, Governor Jose Chavez Alvarez, together with Mayor De Maala of Nara, Palawan, and Mayor Mary Jean Feliciano of Brooks Point, Palawan. We have also with us students from Pamantasan Lunsod ng Maynila. I think they're here as well, over there on my right side, Mr. President. Guest of Senate President himself. We have also barangay captains and officials of Bongabong Oriental Mindoro that are here with us. And we have beautiful ladies in the gallery, Mr. President. One of the reasons why we have a quorum of all our men, I think they're all here, except for missing Senator Ralph Recto. And Senator Win Gatchalian is very happy that they are here. They are Miss Turismo Filipina, headed by CEO Rexner Rubio, and the guests. We have guests also, Senator
Yes.
Pacquiao, several pastors. Oh, yes.
We'd like
There
to,
they are, Madam-
thank you. We'd like to welcome all our guests this afternoon in the Senate, headed by Governor Alvarez and the beauty contestants.
Yes. But he made mention that the beauty contestants were not his party.
All right. The barangay
I asked him,
captains,
he had
the
brought them
mayors-
along with him.
the mayors and the barangay captains and the
students.
officials and the students.
Yes.
All
We also have barangay officials from Valenzuela City, guests of Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Mr. President,
Welcome to the
I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 33rd Session, Tuesday, November 13, 2018. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, the amendment is approved. The motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business, messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it adopted the following. Senate number 1766 as an amendment to House number 7525 entitled, An Act Increasing the Monthly Pension of Senior Veterans, thereby amending Republic Act number 6948 as amended, and Senate number 1270 as an amendment to House number 7544 entitled, An Act declaring the last Monday of January of every year a special working holiday in observance of National Bible Day.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it concurred with the Senate amendments to House number 6620 entitled, An Act Increasing the Bed Capacity of St. Anthony Mother and Child Hospital in Cebu City from 25 to 100 and appropriating funds therefor.
To the archives.
Letters from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it ratified the conference committee reports on the disagreeing votes on the following House number 6740 entitled, An Act upgrading the Labuan Public Hospital in Zamboanga City into a Level 2 hospital to be known as the Labuan General Hospital, increasing its bed capacity for general care services to 100 and appropriating funds therefor. House number 5780 entitled, An Act renaming the Don Honorio Ventura Technological State University, the Municipality of Bacolor, Province of Pampanga, as the Don Honorio Ventura State University and expanding its curricular offerings, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9832, entitled, An Act converting the Don Honorio Ventura College of Arts and Trades in the Municipality of Bacolor, Province of Pampanga, into a state university to be known as the Don Honorio Ventura Technological State University and appropriating funds therefor. House number 6065 entitled, An Act renaming the Nabal State University, the Municipality of Nabal, Province of Biliran, as the Biliran Province State University, and removing the prohibition on the appointment of the university president and private sector representatives, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9718, entitled, An Act converting the Nabal Institute of Technology, the Municipality of Nabal, Province of Biliran, into a state university to be known as the Nabal State University, integrating therewith the Biliran National Agriculture College in the Municipality of Biliran and appropriating funds therefor. House number 6741 entitled, An Act converting the Zamboanga City-State Polytechnic College into a state university to be known as the Zamboanga Peninsula Polytechnic State University and appropriating funds therefore. House number 6030 entitled An Act Integrating the Cebu City Mountain Extension Campus as a satellite campus of the Cebu Technological University and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9744, otherwise known as an act converting the Cebu State College of Science and Technology system in the city of Cebu and all its satellite campuses located in the province of Cebu into a state university to be known as the Cebu Technological University and appropriating funds therefore, and House number 6465 entitled An Act Converting the Northwestern Mindanao State College of Science and Technology in the city of Tagub, province of Misamis Occidental into a state university to be known as the University of Northwestern Mindanao and appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House number 6617 entitled An Act Strengthening the Philippine Comprehensive Policy on Human Immunodeficiency Virus HIV and Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome AIDS in prevention, treatment, care, and support, and establishing the Philippine National HIV and AIDS Plan and appropriating funds therefore, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 8504, otherwise known as the Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 1998, and Senate number 1390 entitled An Act Strengthening the Philippine Comprehensive Policy on Human Immunodeficiency Virus HIV and Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome AIDS Prevention, Treatment, Care, and Support, and establishing the Philippine National AIDS Council, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 8504, otherwise known as the Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 1998, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions on House number 2158 entitled An Act Rationalizing and Expanding the Powers and Duties of the Social Security Commission and the Social Security System, further amending for the purpose Republic Act number 1161 as amended by Republic Act number 8282, otherwise known as the Social Security Act of 1997, and Senate number 1753 entitled An Act Rationalizing and Expanding the Powers and Duties of the Social Security Commission to ensure the long-term viability of the Social Security System, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 1161 as amended by Republic Act number 8282, otherwise known as the Social Security Act of 1997.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House number 5745 entitled An Act Establishing the Coconut Farmers and Industry Development Trust Fund and providing for its management and utilization, and Senate number 1233 entitled An Act Creating the Coconut Farmers and Industry Trust Fund, providing for its management and utilization and for other purposes.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House number 7442 entitled An Act Providing for the Special Protection of Children in Situations of Armed Conflict and Providing Penalties for Violations thereof, and Senate number 2023 entitled An Act Providing Special Protection of Children in Situations of Armed Conflict and Providing Penalties thereof.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 10 October 2018, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House number 6775 entitled An Act Creating the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, defining its mandate, powers, and functions, and appropriating funds therefore, Senate number 1578 entitled An Act Creating the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, defining its mandates, powers, and functions, providing funds therefore, and for other purposes.
To the archives.
Bills on first reading. Senate number 2087 entitled An Act to Ordain the New Building Code of the Philippines, introduced by Senator Grace Poe.
Referred to the Committees on Public Works and Local Government.
Senate number 2088 entitled An Act Providing for the Establishment, Testing, and Evaluation of Strategic Planning and Performance Measurement in Government, introduced by Senator Mariludas Nancy S. Binay.
Referred to the Committee on Civil Service.
Senate number 2089 entitled An Act Requiring Healthcare Providers to Report Cases of Antimicrobial Resistant Infections, introduced by Senator Mariludas Nancy S. Binay.
Referred to the Committee on Health.
Senate number 2090 entitled an act declaring March 1 of every year as a special non-working holiday in the city of Davao to be known as the Araw ng Davao, repealing for the purpose Republic Act No. 7551 and Republic Act No. 7685, introduced by Senator Sani Angara.
To the Committee on Rules.
Senate number 2091, entitled An Act Declaring the Province of Catanduanes as the Abaca Capital of the Philippines, introduced by Senator Sani Angara.
Referred to the Committee on Agriculture.
Resolution, PS Resolution number 939, entitled Resolution Directing the Appropriate Senate Committees to Conduct an Inquiry in Aid of Legislation on the Reported Importation of Plastic Waste from South Korea, introduced by Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel III.
Referred to the Committees on Environment and Foreign Relations.
Additional reference of business.
Additional reference to business. Proceed.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 12 October 2018, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 8453, entitled An Act Instituting Reforms in Real Property Valuation and Assessment in the Philippines, reorganizing the Bureau of Local Government Finance and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Ways and Means, Local Government, and Finance.
House number 8217, entitled An Act Establishing a Consolidated Poverty Data Collection System and Appropriating Funds Therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Social Justice, Local Government, and Finance.
House number 1700, entitled An Act Granting the Overseas Filipino Workers the Right to Equal Protection on Money Claims, amending for the purpose the 5th paragraph of Section 10 of Republic Act No. 8042 as amended by Republic Act No. 10022.
Referred to the Committees on Labor and Foreign Relations.
House number 8110, entitled An Act Mandating the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, POEA, to develop, publish, disseminate, and update a handbook on the rights and responsibilities of migrant workers, amending for the purpose Republic Act No. 8042, otherwise known as the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995, as amended by Republic Act No. 10022.
To the Committee on Rules.
House number 8204, entitled An Act Redefining the Crime of Game Fixing and Prescribing Stiffer Penalties Therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Justice and Sports.
House number 8244, entitled An Act Expanding the Definition of Sexual Harassment, Strengthening the Mechanisms to Monitor Compliance with Policies Against Sexual Harassment in the Workplace and in Educational and Training Institutions, and Prescribing Penalties for Violations thereof, repealing for the purpose Republic Act No. 7877, also referred to as Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995.
Referred to the Committees on Labor and Civil Service.
House number 7820, entitled An Act Granting Survivorship Benefits to the Dependent Children of a Deceased Retired Member of the Commission on Audit, Civil Service Commission, Commission on Elections, and Ombudsman who is a solo parent or the surviving parents or nominated persons of such deceased retiree, amending for the purpose Republic Act No. 10084, entitled An Act Granting Survivorship Benefits to the Surviving Legitimate Spouse of a Deceased Retired Member of the Commission on Audit, Civil Service Commission, Commission on Elections, and the Ombudsman, and for other purposes.
Referred to the Committees on Civil Service and Finance.
House number 7823, entitled An Act Granting Incentives to Filipino Filmmakers who were granted honors in notable international film festivals and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Public Information and Finance.
House number 7849, entitled An Act Providing for a Free and Culture-Sensitive Civil Registration System for Indigenous Peoples.
Referred to the Committees on Cultural Communities and Ways and Means.
House number 7927, entitled An Act Integrating Labor Education in the Social Science Subjects in the Higher Education Curriculum.
Referred to the Committees on Education and Labor.
House number 8186, entitled An Act Reducing the Minimum Membership Requirement for Registration of Unions or Federations and Streamlining the Process of Registration, amending for the purpose Presidential Decree number 442 as amended, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines.
Referred to the Committee on Labor.
House number 8239, entitled An Act Promoting Positive and Nonviolent Discipline, Protecting Children from Physical, Humiliating, or Degrading Acts as a Form of Punishment, and Appropriating Funds therefore.
To the Committee on Rules.
House number 8374, entitled An Act Providing for the Revised Corporation Code of the Philippines.
To the Committee on Rules.
House number 8400, entitled An Act Establishing the Fiscal Regime for the Mining Industry.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
House number 8282, entitled An Act Declaring the Province of Catanduanes as the Abaca Capital of the Philippines.
To the Committee on Agriculture.
House number of 8423 entitled, An Act Creating the Metro Bataan Development Authority, defining its powers and functions, and providing funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Government Corporations, Economic Affairs, and Finance.
House number 6382 entitled, An Act Establishing an Integrated School in Barangay Mauway, City of Mandaluyong, to be known as the Senate President Neptali A. Gonzalez Integrated School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Education and Finance.
House number 6687 entitled, An Act Establishing a Regular District Office of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in the Municipality of Morong, Province of Rizal, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8365 entitled, An Act Rationalizing the Management of the Natural Resources in the Camotes Islands, Province of Cebu, amending for the purpose Proclamation number 2152 dated December 29, 1981, entitled, Declaring the entire province of Palawan and certain parcels of the public domain and/or parts of the country as mangrove swamp forest reserves.
To the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources.
House number 8420 entitled, An Act Establishing a Licensing Branch of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in the City of Parañaque, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committee on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8426 entitled, An Act Amending Section 10B of Republic Act number 10160, otherwise known as the Charter of the City of Bacoor.
Referred to the Committee on Local Government.
House number 8434 entitled, An Act Upgrading the Governor Celestino Gallares Memorial Hospital in Tagbilaran City, Province of Bohol, into a medical center to be known as the Governor Celestino Gallares Memorial Medical Center, increasing its bed capacity from 225 beds to 525 beds, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Health and Finance.
House number 8435 entitled, An Act Upgrading the Eversley Child Sanitarium Hospital in Mandaue City, Province of Cebu, into General Hospital to be known as the Eversley Child Sanitarium and General Hospital, increasing its bed capacity from 50 beds to 200 beds, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Health and Finance.
House number 8437 entitled, An Act Establishing a Regular District Office of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in the City of Tanawan, 3rd District of Batangas, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8438 entitled, An Act Establishing a Satellite Office of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in the Municipality of Gimba, Province of Nueva Ecija, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8439 entitled, An Act Establishing a Satellite Office of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in San Jose del Monte City, Province of Bulacan, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8441 entitled, An Act Declaring the Balanga Wetland and Nature Park located in Barangay Tortuga, City of Balanga, Province of Bataan, as a responsible community-based ecotourism zone, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Environment, Tourism, and Finance.
House number 8442 entitled, An Act Establishing an Extension Office of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in the Municipality of Infanta, Province of Quezon, and appropriating funds therefore.
Referred to the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8443 entitled, An Act Converting the Quezon Licensing Center of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in Lucena City, Province of Quezon, into a regular licensing center to be known as the Lucena City Licensing Center, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8444 entitled, An Act Establishing a District Branch of the Land Transportation Office in the Municipality of Maramag, Province of Bicnon, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
House number 8445 entitled, An Act Establishing a Satellite Office of the Land Transportation Office, LTO, in the Municipality of Kibawe, Province of Bukidnon, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
And House number 8449 entitled, An Act Increasing the Bed Capacity of the Mariveles Mental Hospital in Mariveles, Province of Bataan, from 500 beds to 700 beds, renaming it as the Mariveles Mental Wellness and General Hospital, upgrading its services to include the operation of a Level 1 General Ward with 100 bed capacity, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Health and Finance.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 12 November 2018, it reconsidered the ratification of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Number 4113 entitled An Act Increasing the Maternity Leave Period to 100 Days for Female Workers in the Government Service and in the Private Sector and granting an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay, and Senate Number 1305 entitled An Act Increasing the Maternity Leave Period to 120 days for female workers in the government service and the private sector with an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay, providing a parental leave period for adoptive parents, and granting an additional 30 days for solo mothers and for other purposes.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 12 November 2018, it designated Representatives Herrera D., Cayetano, Lagman, Go de Jesus, T. and Antonio as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Number 4113 entitled An Act Increasing the Maternity Leave Period to 100 Days for Female Workers in the Government Service and in the Private Sector, and granting an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay, and Senate Number 1305 entitled An Act Increasing the Maternity Leave Period to 120 days for female workers in the government service and private sector with an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay, providing a parental leave period for adoptive parents, and granting an additional 30 days for solo mothers and for other purposes.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 12 November 2018, it concurred with the Senate amendments to House Number 4935 entitled An Act Creating a Barangay to be known as Barangay Don Albino Tita Rook in the Municipality of Socorro, Province of Surigao del Norte.
To the Archives. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have with us some special guests. Earlier, I don't know if she's still around, but earlier I saw Governor Amy Marcos here with us today in the Senate. And we have a special guest as well, the international entrepreneur, Tony Fernandez, the founder of AirAsia, is with us today. He's an inspiration to many of us entrepreneurs, Mr. President. He's here to help push for the Public Services Act amendments. So, Mr. President, we'd like to move to resume consideration, rather. House Bill number, are you ready, Fanny? You're next. House Bill number 8055 under Committee Report number 490. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? The chair hears none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
This is an act dividing province of Palawan to 3 provinces, namely Palawan del Norte, Palawan Oriental, and Palawan del Sur. We'd like to recognize the sponsor, Senator Angara, and I believe to interpolate Senator Risa Ontiveros. Or Senator, is it you or ladies first? Ladies first, Senator Risa Ontiveros to interpolate.
Senator Sani Angara is recognized.
Thank you, Mr.
To
President.
sponsor the measure to interpolate Senator Ontiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, Mr. President, please allow me to state that I'm all for the speedy delivery of government service, especially in a province that said to register a 55% poverty incidence. After all, it's a basic right that must be enjoyed by all Filipinos. Likewise, we will leave the final decision on whether or not the province should be divided to its constituents through the plebiscite should this bill become law. Having said that, I do have a few clarificatory questions to the good sponsor. First, good sponsor, is on the issue of consultation. I'm sure that the sponsor is aware of its importance, having himself led with Senator Miggs and joined the regional consultations for the Bangsamoro Organic Law. The records will indicate that a public hearing on our bill was conducted on 13th September, and subsequently a technical working group was held last 27th September. I assume that the hearing was conducted here in the Senate. Who were invited, Mr. President? Aside from the LGU of Palawan, were other government agencies invited? And how about NGOs, good sponsor? Were there any oppositors present in the said hearing, or did they in any way convey their opposition to the subject bill? Related to the issue of consultation, was there an attempt from the committee to reach out to NGOs or at least conduct one public hearing in the province, Mr. President?
Thank you, good colleague, Mr. President. Regarding your question about the public hearing, who was present, the provincial officials were present, governor, vice governor. In fact, the governor is here in the hall. We'd like to acknowledge his presence, Governor Alvarez. And the authors in the House were also present during the hearing, namely Representative Alvarez, Representative Abueg, also some mayors, Vice Governor Socrates was there, some mayors were there, the members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan were also there, also Sangguniang Bayan members, and of course the national government officials from the local DILG, the DOF, the DBM, from the COMELEC as well, and we also had representatives of the various leagues. Your Honor.
No NGOs, Mr. President, or did the NGOs at least communicate their opinion about the bill, or did the committee try to reach out to the NGOs or conduct a hearing in the province itself, Mr.
No
President?
NGOs were present, Your Honor, and no hearings were held in the province.
Maybe that's a bit too bad, Mr. President, because I'd like to note that the Save Palawan movement and the Palawan NGO network have in fact voiced their opposition to the division of Palawan.
We've not received any communications from them, and we're happy to perhaps communicate with them, and if they would like to get in touch with the committee, we're happy to hear them out. But as of this moment, we have not received any communications from them, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be glad to communicate the good sponsors' kind invitation and openness to these NGO oppositors. In the sponsors' view, Mr. President, does this proposal take into account the various natural resources laws and policies that affect Palawan? Currently, the province is the only LGU that is governed by a specific framework on sustainable development through RA 7611, or the Strategic Environmental Plan for Palawan. It's the same law that led to the creation of the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development, a multi-sectoral and interdisciplinary body charged with the governance, implementation, and policy direction of the SEP, or the plan. What is the implication of the proposal on the operation of the PCSD, the Council, and various environmental protection laws that seek to protect Palawan, the country's last frontier? Does the proposed bill serve to effectively amend RA 7611? In other words, Mr. President, is the repealing clause of House Bill 8055, or in the repealing clause, is there a contemplation that the PCSD is in a way inconsistent with the current bill, Mr. President?
Thank you for the question, Your Honor. In our opinion, there is no inconsistency with the law mentioned by the good chair or vice chair of the Committee on Local Government. There is an implication perhaps on the composition of the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development, where there are ex officio members, namely the Governor of Palawan, the Mayor of Puerto Princesa, and other officials. That law will probably have to be amended later on. Assuming this, we are able to pass this law, we'll probably have to amend that law going forward. And as to its functions, the idea behind the bill or the creation of the 3 provinces, Your Honor, is to better able to provide local services. So each local government unit, each province will
Yes, Mr. President,
will have their
I hear
own
you.
environmental officer, and I think the rationale, as you mentioned the poverty rate, the high poverty rate. I think there is a difficulty, given the size of the province as one of the country's biggest provinces, for the local government officials to effectively service each and every constituent, whether it is a local government unit, a municipality, or an individual, given the size of the province, Your Honor. So that's why, that's one of the reasons we're dividing it. But in terms of environmental protection, I don't think there is any substantial amendment here, Your Honor.
It's clear, Mr. President, that the response of the sponsor that there's no implication to the body of the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development. But what about any implications on the various environmental protection laws that seek to protect our last frontier?
I don't
Mr.
believe there's
President.
any amendment of those laws, Your Honor, and they are still in force and in effect for the whole province and for the provinces to be created.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I be clarified now on the population requirement under the local government code for the creation of new provinces, vis-a-vis the population requirement for the creation of legislative districts? Although the population requirement has not been met, I understand that Palawan satisfies the requirement in terms of land area, or the requirements, land area and income. But is it correct that under the Constitution, a 250,000 population requirement is found in Section 53, 3, Article 6, for the creation of new districts? What then is the implication of the division of the province into 3 and the reapportionment of the different legislative districts, Mr. President?
Your Honor, the good lady, Senator from Akbayan, is correct that the 3 provinces do not meet the population, but what the local government code requires is the new province to be created, or the new provinces to be created, meet either, they must meet a certain income requirement, and in this case, all 3 provinces, Palawan del Norte, Oriental, and Sur, meet the income requirement, and they also meet the land area requirement. But I think in a matter of time, they will meet the optional population requirement as well.
Noted, Mr. President. But why is there a need to designate, by the way, a mother province? Are there any other provinces similarly situated?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. President, the designation of the mother province is because there are also requirements for the mother province. And in this case, those requirements of the local government code are also met in terms of land area and non-diminution of the income of the province, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for my education, Mr. President, which of the new provinces will have jurisdiction over our territories in the West Philippine Sea? And has this bill taken into account in the subdivision of the province those territories, Mr. President?
I'm told it is Palawan del Sur, Your Honor.
Is this the mother, will this be the mother province, Mr. President?
Yes, Your Honor.
If this bill is passed into law and is ratified by the citizens of Palawan province, then Palawan del Sur will be very important as we continue to explore how to uphold our national sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea vis-a-vis China. Mr. President, what will be the effect of the division on the bureaucracy of the province? Instead of streamlining, we might seem to be bloating the bureaucracy, Mr. President.
Well, there will be an increase, I think, of a few, I think it's about 40 new employees for across the 3 provinces already. But I think this will serve the purpose of better delivery of government and essential services, given the size of the province.
Thank you, Mr. President. One last question for now, Mr. President. Regarding the Senate committee report, particularly Section 48 on the jail service, there's mention of a, quote, district jail for the custody and safekeeping of prisoners awaiting investigation or trial, and or violent, mentally ill person who endangers himself or the safety of others, duly certified as such by the proper medical officer, pending the transfer to a mental institution, close quote. Could the good sponsor clarify the mention of the temporary incarceration of mentally ill persons in district jails, as this seems to run counter, Mr. President, to the intent and spirit of the recently approved Republic Act 11036, or the Mental Health Law. The sponsor may recall that one of the basic rights we provided patients suffering from mental illness is informed consent to treatment, and where involuntary treatment or restraint is applied, that such shall be in strict accordance with the guidelines by authorities and to be reviewed by the Internal Review Board created under the law, or Section 13, letter D of that law. The jail surely, Mr. President, good sponsor, is not a place for a person suffering from mental illness.
This provision that the good lady senator raises came from the local government code and was also suggested by the BJMP, Your Honor. But if Your Honor wishes to formulate an amendment that is more attuned to current developments and is more in tune with the mental health law which Your Honor sponsored, then we would most welcome that.
Thank you so much, good sponsor. At the appropriate time, I will indeed propose an amendment for the good sponsor's consideration to remove the mention of mentally ill persons from that section. Thank you very much, good sponsor, and thank you, Mr. President.
We would welcome that, and we thank the good lady sponsor from, lady senator from Akbayan and Aklan.
Senator,
Majority Leader.
thank you, Mr. President. I believe Senator Sonny Trillanes is also going to pose questions. Questions. May we ask for a 1-minute suspension until we can...
Session is suspended.
Thank you. Mr. President, ready to resume.
Session is resumed.
While we're awaiting Senator Sonny Trillanes to interpolate the measure, Mr. President, may we just suspend consideration of the measure for the meantime?
Any objection? There being none, consideration of the measure is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1998 under Committee Report number 440, I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, Senate Bill 1998's consideration is in order.
The status is it's in the period of amendment, Mr. President, and we have with us today to sponsor, maybe recognize Senator Cynthia Villar, and to propound some amendments, our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, Senator Franklin Drilon.
Senator Cynthia Villar is recognized.
Amendment.
We're still in the period of amendments. Did we have a copy, the clean copy already?
Okay. Mr. President, we have now the clean copy of the rice tariffication bill, and our minority floor leader will just have to manifest some amendments to the bill.
So we are now looking at the clean copy as of November 13, 2018. The minority leader is recognized.
Ayun pala. Iniintay si Trillanes. Oh, pagkatapos namin, ikaw na. Sandali lang. Dumating na.
Lines, page 5, line.
Okay. Mr. President, while waiting for Senator Drilon, can we manifest 2 amendments from our end? Or you will do it now?
Well, yes, I can propose by interpolation after the good sponsor would propose some amendments.
You may proceed, Senator Villar.
Mr. President, on page 12, line 34, delete us, and line 35, delete follows, and add, and included in the General Appropriations Act of the following year.
The excess tariff revenue shall be earmarked by Congress and included in the
General Appropriations Act of the following year.
GAA of the following year. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Okay. And there is another amendment on saan ba yun? Wala na. On page 10, lines 13 to 18.
Patras, ha? Page 10, line
13 to 18.
13 to 18.
And we will remove "and shall" in line 14, and remove "promulgate the policies and guidelines for planning, administration, coordination, and monitoring of the utilization of the fund," which is line 16 to 18.
So, in your proposal, how does it read now?
The Secretary of Agriculture shall be accountable and responsible for the rice fund in coordination with other government agencies concerned, period.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Okay. We now hear the amendment of our minority floor leader.
Senator Frank Drilon, the minority leader, is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May we submit for the consideration of the good sponsor the following amendments. We start, we had a number of amendments, but that we submitted to the sponsor earlier yesterday, but with the amendments proposed by Senator Recto, a number of those amendments were either taken up and voted upon, and therefore we have reduced the number of amendments that we will propose. The first amendment is on page 4. We propose to delete on page 4 from line 26 to line 35, and on page
26 to
5
35.
from line 1 to line 8. This, in effect, will enable the NFA to exercise the power that is found particularly in lines 1 to 6 of the version that we are referring to. So I will repeat, Mr. President, our amendment is to delete page 4, line 26 to line 35, and on page 5 from line 1 to 8. We submit, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment.
Accepted. Any objection?
Tama yun, ha?
Chair hears none. Amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 5, line 14, after the word rise in the title, insert
Pinatatanggal nila yung...
for the sole purpose of ensuring food safety. End of amendment, we submit, Your Honor.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment.
Accepted. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Still on page 5, line 18, after the word regulations, insert the following, and insert a proviso which will read as follows: provided, comma, that the clearance shall not provide for import volume and timing restrictions. End of amendment on page 5, line 18, Your Honor.
What will follow regulations now? A period or a colon?
It's a colon, Mr. President.
A colon. Any, what does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment.
Accepted.
Yes.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Adopted.
Still on the same page, page 5, line 18, after the word provided, insert the following, insert further. I'm sorry, insert further, Your Honor.
Provided further,
Yes.
comma. And then?
That's all
That's
on
it.
line 18.
That's it. What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Accepted. Any objection? Chair hears none. Adopted.
On the same page, line 18, I'm sorry, on the same page, line 28, insert a new sentence which will read as follows: the food safety regulatory function of the NFA under item parenthesis 1, Roman numeral 1 parenthesis comma, section 16 of Republic Act number 10611, comma, otherwise known as the Food Safety Act of 2013, is hereby transferred to the BPI. End of amendment.
Are you incorporating a quotation marks on Food Safety Act of 2013?
No,
No quotation marks.
yes, just,
What does the sponsor say?
I accept.
Accepted. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
okay. Amendment number 3, Your Honor, we propose the amendment on page 6, line 32, up to page 7, line 26. We propose to delete the whole of section 7 and replace the same with the following. Section 7, power of the President to change tariff rates of rice, period. The President, comma, when Congress is not in session, comma, upon the recommendation of the Tariff Commission and NEDA, may, A, reduce the applied rate on a specified volume of imported rice in case of an impending rice shortage as determined by an interagency technical committee and confirmed by the NFA Council, and B, increase the tariff equivalent.
Excuse me, Mr. Minority Floor Leader, there is no more NFA Council, so
I'm sorry.
can we remove that?
Can we just be allowed to finish and then we can amend afterwards,
Yes.
Mr. President? Letter B,
Continue.
increase the tariff equivalent referred to under Section 6C beyond 100% in words and figures, the provision of Section 1608, paragraph A1 of the CMTA to the contrary notwithstanding, period. Paragraph, any order issued by the President adjusting the tariff rates and or specifying the volume and the prescribed period of importation shall take effect immediately. The power herein delegated to the President may be withdrawn or terminated by Congress through a joint resolution. This is the proposed new section on the powers of the President.
What is now the comment of the sponsor?
We accept, except that we remove that NFA Council kasi there is no more NFA Council.
So letter A will, as you will accept, will end in committee, the word committee. Technical committee, period.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, semicolon, end. Committee, semicolon, end. Is that acceptable to the proponent?
Acceptable, Mr. President?
Accepted by the sponsor as amended. Any objection? The chair hears none. Amendment is approved.
Mr. President, just a clarification.
Before
The
Yeah.
President Pro Tem is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, yesterday we voted on this section, but I have no problem if we could further amend it if something is not clear. No?
Just a comment on that, Mr. President. Yes, we accept that we voted on this, but I assume we suspended the rules because otherwise it would have delayed the whole thing because every time we have our own amendment, we would have stood up and proposed the amendment. So our understanding...
Technically, yes, technically...
the President Pro Tem is correct.
Correct, but technically,
Yeah, but
it is with the consent of the chamber, so unless
Yes. And,
anyone objects, we
yes,
can
and Mr.
proceed.
President, I have no objection. I just want to clarify on the intent of the sponsor of the amendment, on the substance.
Yes.
Because here, in the powers of the President, we have 3 paragraphs, A, B, and C. In
Presently.
paragraph A, so we are empowering the President may increase, reduce, revise, or adjust existing rates of import duty up to the bound rate committed by the Philippines under the WTO agreement on agriculture under ATIGA, including any necessary change in classification applicable to the importation of rice, provided the power herein delegated shall only be exercised when Congress is not in session. Provided further that any order issued by the President adjusting the applied tariff rate shall take effect 15 days after publication. Okay. So what is the intent of the sponsor of the amendment for paragraph A?
Under the CMTA, there is a provision there that the revision of tariff rates can only be done when Congress is not in session. And we harmonize.
Yes.
Second, the second, Mr. President, the power to fix tariff rates is basically a function of Congress, and therefore, any delegation must be clear and must be limited. And number 3, as a practical matter, when the President may want to revise import duty, and Congress is not in session, I think our practice will show that we can always accommodate such request by adjourning the session for that period to enable the President to revise import duties.
Yes. Mr. President, it also
That's the-
says
that's
here,
the,
yes, in paragraph A, when Congress is not in session, it is the same. I just want to understand the intent. So that this is one, paragraph A. Then you have paragraph E. Paragraph E provides the President the authority, pag may forecasted shortage requiring government intervention, the President is empowered for a limited period, so on and so forth.
No, well, on letter B, Mr. President, precisely says, even when Congress is in session.
Yeah. Okay, so is the minority leader saying that substantially you want to repeal paragraph B? Is that the intent?
True? I'm sorry, can we have that again, sir?
Is the intent of the minority leader to delete paragraph B?
Yun nga sinasabi.
Yes, Mr. President, and substitute it with what we have suggested.
May I have a copy of the entire text of the proposed amendment, Mr. President?
Yeah, we're gonna-
In the meantime, let's have a 1-minute suspension for you to be able to go over that, because the next step will be to entertain a motion for reconsideration on the just amended portion. Session is suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President. Ready to resume.
The session resumed.
Ready to resume, Mr. President. Mr. President, during the short break, this representation had a discussion with the original proponent of the amendment found on page 6 and 7, which we have referred to earlier. After a review, we are withdrawing the amendment that we have proposed, and in lieu thereof, propose the following. All right?
Hold on.
Yes. Yes, Mr.
I'd
President.
like
Let me
to,
repeat. Let me
can
repeat.
you act as the majority leader and make a motion to reconsider the amendment that we have approved?
Okay. So, Mr. President, yes, may we be allowed to ask for a reconsideration of the
Of the-
approval of the amendment that we have proposed
The previous amendment,
on
yes.
page 6, line 29, up to page 7 on line 26.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. We are reconsidering the proposed amendment that was approved.
Okay. So with that, Mr. President, may we now propose the following amendment, so that we retain the provision as previous, the recto amendment as previously approved, but insert therein on page 6, line 36, after the word authority, insert the following: subject to the provisions of the CMTA, comma.
In the following circumstances.
That's correct, sir.
Any objection? Chair hears none, motion is approved. We are technically still and back to the original version of section of page 6 and page 7.
That's correct, sir.
All right.
So,
Mr. President, can we make amendment to letter C of page
Yes.
7?
Yes, we will do that. Let us finish first page 6. So are we
Okay.
done with page 6?
yes, sir.
Let us now proceed to page 7. And are you retaining the ABC of Senator Recto?
With a slight amendment on line 20 and 21.
On line 20 and 21, may we hear it so that the sponsor may
Yes.
listen to?
On line 20, is it on line 20? Line 20. Line 20, delete the word even. After the word issue, there's a word even. Delete even, and on line 29, before the word,
Let us finish that first.
sorry, 21. Sorry, 21.
Okay.
When, on line 21, before the word in, insert not. And therefore, the
In
phrase
not.
will now read, when Congress is not in session.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Accepted. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
On line 27,
Hold on.
Yes.
The sponsor
Hold
has
on.
has an amendment on letter C.
We just want, Mr. President, we want to change the out quota in line 23 to applied. Instead of out quota, applied tariff rate.
Applied.
Okay?
All right. Any objection? Before we act on the measure, may we listen to the President Pro Temp? He is inquiring about that particular amendment.
Ano ilalagay mo?
yes, this is an amendment of Senator Recto,
Yes.
previously approved, Mr. President.
Out quota, applied tariff. Okay.
Hold on. Are you objecting, Senator Recto?
Just a clarification, it might just be a nomenclature, but in paragraph C, the suggestion is instead of using the term out quota,
Applied.
to use the term applied tariff rate. Now, what is the difference between out quota and applied?
That is the word used in the...
Just for clarification, Mr. President.
That is the word used in the law. Ano difference ng out? That is the applied quota is the word used in the tariff code. So we are just being consistent. Kasi naman kayo, pati yun. Naiinis na ako sa inyo.
Yes. Mr. President, because there is a reference here, I think the out quota might be more appropriate instead of the applied tariff rate because it refers to Section 6C of this Act. And Section 6C talks about out quota.
Well, both points are basing it on consistency.
Yes.
So which one do we take?
Yes, the intent, well, for consistency, paragraph 6C, it talks about out quota. Okay? Now, the substance of this, Mr. President, we both agree, this is to protect the farmers. That is the substance. But what is the more appropriate term to be used?
So if we want to be consistent with the proposed bill, it must be out quota. And according to the sponsor, if they want to be, we want to be consistent with the tariff code, we have to use applied.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
There's a different meaning of the out quota and applied.
Because if we if we don't use the applied tariff rate, then CMTA will not apply. CMTA will not apply.
And then therefore, we will have to amend also page 6, section 6C, which is being referred to here, which talks about for rice imports originating from non-ASEAN WTO member states, the out quota tariff rate calculated in accordance with paragraph 10 of Annex 5, so on and so forth. So, and that's why we use the term out
Agree na
quota
lang
here.
sa... We shall agree na lang the out quota.
All right, so
We withdraw our amendment.
all right, the amendment is withdrawn. We will now proceed with line 27. Minority Leader.
Ano tayo? Title.
Line 27, 28, Minority Leader.
Wala man title dito.
We're done. We're on 27, 28, as you are
All right.
about to propose.
Wala naman dyan eh.
So, on line 27, on line 27, we propose the following amendment. The power herein granted to the President may be withdrawn or terminated by Congress through a joint resolution.
Saan ba yun?
What does the sponsor say?
What page, Mr. President?
Page 7, line 27, the Minority Leader is proposing an
Insertion.
additional, yes, an
Yes,
additional sentence.
Can we hear again the insertion, Mr.
Yes,
President?
yes. The following insertion is proposed. The power herein delegated to the President.
I thought you would want to use granted instead of delegated.
No, this delegated, because the power is basically congressional power. And we delegate that, Mr. President, so that we can terminate it through an... Okay, so
All right.
that is why it is correct, sir. The power herein delegated to the President may be withdrawn or terminated by Congress through a joint resolution.
We accept
Accepted. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
All right.
the last one. Nasa yung title.
We are proposing an amendment to the title only to strengthen the argument that we are not violating the one title, one subject rule. And we are submitting this to the sponsor. This is not a substantive amendment, but an amendment on the title that we
Title of this bill.
title of this bill.
All right, let's hear it, because afterwards, we seem to be having a problem with a title that was amended earlier, was pointed out by Senator Coco Pimentel. He has informed me of this particular
But this one is the title of the bill.
Of the bill, all right.
Okay, we
Proceed.
propose to the sponsor
Nasaan yung
to
insertion
amend the
po?
title and to read as follows.
Yung isen.
An act liberalizing the importation, exportation, and trading of rice, lifting for the purpose the quantitative
Import.
import restriction on rice, and for other purposes. That is our proposed amendment, just to strengthen our position that that the bill will not violate the one title, one subject standard.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept it as long as it covers everything that
Yes.
we included in the bill.
Well, it appears so.
Yeah, okay.
Accepted. Any objection? Chair hears none. The amendment is adopted.
We have another amendment, Mr. President,
Yes, the sponsor?
in page 12, line 20.
Page 12.
We insert a provision provided that the percentage allocation will be reviewed on the third year of the effectivity of this act for possible revision should intervention priorities change.
May I hear the start of the proposed amendment?
It's on page 12, line 20.
And then?
Okay. Insert this provision.
Okay.
Provided, that the percentage allocation will be reviewed on the third year of the effectivity of this act for possible revisions should intervention priorities change.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Amendment is adopted.
We're finished.
Can we now cure the next provision, provided and then provided further? Perhaps you can go provided further and then provided furthermore.
Yeah. Thank
Any
you.
objection? Adopted.
Okay, we can now vote on it.
Senator Coco Pimentel is recognized. If you're done, the minority leader.
Yes, we are through, Mr. President. We're finished. We have no more amendments.
Referring, Mr. President, to the clean copy as of November
Yes.
13, 2018. I see Section 1, which amends a title of an existing law. I have my doubts if this can be done or if we should do this. The amendment, this bill, when it becomes law, it necessarily now amends the substance of the existing law. But I don't think that we should amend the title of an existing law because that changes historical record, Mr. President.
Therefore, what you are saying is that the title of the new law will be the controlling title. Ano?
And
And the old law need not be amended.
and we can even
The
maybe-
title of the old law.
Yes,
will not be
the
amended.
title, the fact that the old law has been necessarily amended by this bill can even be stated in a declaration of policy that there's a change in the policy, that we are now including rice in the replacement of quantitative import restrictions. But my point, Mr. President, I'm just pointing out to this amendment of an existing title. So we will be safer if we delete this Section 1 of the clean copy. Mr.
And Section 2 as well,
Section.
because it is a continuation.
No, Section 2, sir.
No.
Section 2 amends a provision of law, which we can do. Well, my point is we do not amend the title of existing law because we changed the...
Oh, pero why are we saying further amended? This has become section 1. They have not amended anything yet.
Pwede.
Hindi ba?
Yes, basta iba na po yan. Basta let me go back to my
sige.
initial, the title.
Mr. President,
Yes, the minority leader.
Mr. President, I concur with the statement of Senator Pimentel. Indeed, even if we do not amend the title of 8178, it is deemed amended by the passage of this bill, which in effect will replace the import restrictions, the QRs on rice. Because in effect, we really amend by implication, as the two laws would be inconsistent.
Well, this was already...
On that point, we concur, Mr. President. Now, on section 2 on page 9, it says it further amended because I assume 8178 was previously amended. So, further amended is a correct amendment, Mr. President. So, we concur with
Tama yung
with Senator Pimentel. Senator Pimentel, I assume, is proposing to delete section 1, which is found on page 1, lines 1 to line 7. Is that correct? Yes, that's the amendment.
All right. Any objection? What does the sponsor of the amendment say? The President brought them.
Mr. President, I have no objection to that. It does not change anything
Yes.
substantially.
All right.
It just looks bad that the old law in the title says except rice, and then we amended everything inside to include rice. Nevertheless, I concur with both
Yes.
gentlemen that it will not change anything
Correct.
substantially.
And the new law, the bill, when it becomes law, is the controlling title.
Yes.
All right. Any objection? Chair hears none. Proposed amendment is adopted.
In that case,
we can
in that
entertain a
case-
motion to renumber.
Yes, we so move to renumber, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. So renumbered. Are we going for another clean copy, or are we ready to?
Go to a vote na. Pagod na ako.
Senator Ontiveros is recognized. Senator Pangilinan,
Okay na yan.
which is which? Senator Pangilinan is recognized.
Mr. President, Senator Joel also wishes to propose amendments.
I see. Okay.
Nasaan ba yun? Binigay
May we have a 1-minute suspension? Oh,
Ikaw na muna.
Session is resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we are still at the period of amendments on Senate Bill number 1998. We will recognize once more Senator Cynthia Villar and to propose amendments, Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Senator Villar, the sponsor is on the floor. Senator Pangilinan for the continuation of the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished sponsor and majority leader.
Basta dun mo idadagdag.
We would like to know if the good sponsor would be willing to
Yes.
accommodate two amendments.
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, there were more amendments, but I had waited for the amendments of Senators Recto and Senator Drilon. And a number of them were accepted, and a number of them actually were amendments I was also intending to propose. And therefore, we're now down to just two, Mr. President. The first proposed amendment, Mr. President, based on our interpellation, would be on page 10, line 11, Mr. President. After the word terminated on line 11, the paragraph to include the line, the COCAFAM shall utilize the increase or decrease in farmers' incomes as a primary benchmark in determining the effectiveness of the interventions under the program and its possible extension.
We accept.
Accepted. Any objection? Chair hears none. Amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the final proposed amendment would be on page 12, line 28. And the proposed amendment will follow after the period. The increase or decrease of farmers' incomes shall be the primary benchmark in granting their interventions.
We accept.
This will follow the line 28.
That is correct.
Because after line 28, there is another proviso. The two other provisos.
That is correct.
All right. Accepted. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
No other further amendments, Mr. President. We just would like to emphasize that the interventions should, in the end, should lead to better incomes of our farmers.
Okay.
Otherwise, what is the point of putting all these interventions when the farmers remain poor? And the best determinant of whether or not the interventions are effective is if they're earning more. For the record, Mr. President.
All right. Senator Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just like to also put on record that most of our amendments were already carried as introduced by our senior members of this chamber, namely Senators Recto and Senator Drilon. So this is just a quick two amendments on page 5, if the distinguished sponsor would accept on page 5, line 14, after the word rice in the title, insert the words and other permits for rice importation, just to be more clarified, Mr. President.
You have to clarify that, Mr. President.
Yeah, so that it would read and other permits.
What page
for-
again? Page 5?
Page 5, line 14, Mr.
Line
President.
14.
914.
We wanted to, after the word rice in the title, insert the words and other permits for rice importation, because other than the photosanitary import clearance for rice, there are also other permits.
We
This was,
cannot allow more permits because we are trying to streamline importation.
No,
So-
there is an amendment on this particular line already by
Yeah.
Senator Drilon.
Yes, they want to simplify the importation, so they do not want NFA to be able, or the government to be able to make it difficult for importers to import.
Mr.
Because
President, may I-
that is the source of graft.
May I ask for 1 minute suspension? Mr.
Yeah,
President?
okay. Before the suspension, the amendment that was approved earlier, after rice, comes for the sole purpose of ensuring food safety, comma.
No more other permits. Parang safety lang to. Ayaw na nila ng other permits kasi it is the source of graft pa eh.
Anyway,
We'll submit now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay.
I withdraw my
All right,
amendment,
thank
Mr.
you.
President.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
no other amendment?
Uh,
Senator Hontiveros is recognized.
siya dun sa aadan niya pa yung binigay ni Recto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good sponsor, I'd just like to propose, make of record, the amendments that I submitted to the good sponsor earlier and hope to receive favorable response from her. So, good sponsor on page...
Mr. President, we have a list of what we can do in case there is more collected from the tariff, and we have enumerated 1 to 4 of what we're going to do if there's excess
Yes, that's
of
what
more than 10 billion
that
in
was
the
introduced
tariff
by Senator
collection.
Recto yesterday,
So
yes.
if you want to add with
Yes,
the
good
list,
sponsor.
then we can hear your
Yes,
amendment.
thank you, Mr. President. Precisely, in addition to that amended portion, Section 12, the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund,
May we know what page, please?
page 9, line 34. So after the phrase, a yearly appropriation of 10 billion pesos for the next 6 years after the approval of this act through the GAA, insert on that line, and this is my proposed, sorry, good sponsor?
Page 9,
Line 34. I propose to add to the enumeration,
May we know what copy you are using?
I'm using, Mr. President, clean copy as of November 13, 2018, which was distributed to us this afternoon.
there is no enumeration in page 9. The enumeration is
Yes.
on page 11,
Page 11.
and then another one in page
All right, Mr. Good sponsor.
13.
Yeah, that's the reason I asked. I don't see any enumeration on page 9.
Correct. Sorry, Mr. President, the pages seem to have moved, but following the advice of the good sponsor, so I'm looking now at letters A, B, C, and D on lines 11 and 12. Is that correct?
Yes.
Of
Yes,
page?
yes. That is the use of the 10 billion.
Yes,
And
Mr.
there is
Good
another
sponsor.
list for the use of the money in excess of 10 billion.
I am
So,
referring...
I hope you will insert it in
Yes,
the
yes.
amendment of Senator Recto of the use of the excess of 10 billion, because we have
Yes.
voted on the use of the 10 billion,
Yes.
and we have agreed on that.
That's right, Mr. President, a good sponsor. So yes, the enumeration for the monies in excess
Yes,
of the 10 billion
That's
peso.
page 13.
Page 13.
1 to
up
4.
4. Yes, page 13.
That's the
Yes.
Recto
So I would like to
amendment.
propose to the Recto amendment, good sponsor, a number 5 or an item number 5, what I propose to do or discuss with the good sponsor in interpellation, the decoupled rice safety nets. Mr. President.
What do you mean by that, Ms.?
Decoupled rice safety nets, good sponsor, to address the potential loss of income to rice farmers. The RCEF is designed to provide input subsidies to minimize production cost and increase yield. However, there's a mismatch, as setting the RCEF may take years, while the income loss is immediate once the law is in place.
So there is use number 1, rice farmer financial assistance.
Yes,
Are you talking
good
of that?
sponsor.
That's
Not
the
only that,
recto
Mr.
amendment. You will give money. The excess tariff revenue should be released to the DA and shall be used for providing direct financial assistance to rice farmers as compensation for the projected reduction or loss of farm income arising from the tariffication of the quantitative import restriction on rice.
If the good sponsor will accept my proposed amendment in this number 1,
Yes.
rice farmer financial assistance, I had a proposed rate for what I call decoupled payments in mind. A rate of 5,500 pesos per hectare per planting, capped at 2 hectares, which total decoupled payment would cost the government 10.6 billion pesos annually. Though even this payment rate, good sponsor, is not enough to compensate all the farmers' losses, but enough to keep them from falling into poverty.
I don't think we will have that much money, so I cannot accept that.
I have a related proposed amendment next, Mr. President, which would address that possible divergence in the amounts in excess of 10 billion, since we cannot predict exactly
Yeah, but I
right now
don't
what it
think,
would
we
be
have
for the
4
first year.
uses which we approve, and I don't think we will raise 10 billion additional for this. So let's not put the amount, let's just enumerate what we want to give. Because it's very difficult if you put the amount and there is no enough money for that.
Actually,
It's creating false hope for the people. Because 10 billion is a reasonable estimate. But our colleague, Senator Recto, think that if there is an excess, then we can allocate it. But I don't think there will be that enough excess to put an amount there of 10 billion a year. That's too much. And maybe we will be creating false hope to our farmers, rice farmers.
Actually, Mr. President, my original proposed amendment, which I submitted to the good sponsor before this period of amendments, was really anticipating to use the excess revenues all for decoupled rice
Yeah, but we have accepted this amendment. We voted on it on the first 1 to 4 amendment. That's rice farmer financial assistance, titling of agricultural rice land, expanded crop insurance program on rice, and crop diversification program.
Yes, Mr. President. Although, as the minority leader
at
said
least
earlier,
yeah.
we simply did not stand up to interrupt while related
Yeah,
amendments
yeah.
were being proposed, so as not to para hindi guluhin yung proseso. But I am still proposing these amendments to the good sponsor.
I can accept your amendment plus, but please do not put an amount because that amount will not be available. We're not sure that that amount will be available. Let's put that we will give. But let's not put the amount because we don't know yet what will be the excess.
May we be clarified on the proposal of the distinguished lady from
Yes, Mr.
Akbayan?
Wants 10 billion.
No. Let's start off with, you want to add a number 5 to the...
No. I said the addition of number 5 is like number 1.
Correct.
It's financial assistance to rice farmers.
What is the thing that you are mentioning about decoupled?
Yes, Mr. President. The decoupled safety nets are in order to offset the negative impact of the transition to tariffication on rice farmers. I recall even the good Senator Recto earlier mentioned a magnitude of about 87 billion pesos of loss, even to highly productive rice farmers, simply from the transition from quantitative restrictions to rice tariffication. And so in order to help especially the poorest farmers, for example, those farming 2 hectares and below, who may or may not, in fact, Mr. President, continue rice farming because of the negative effects to their household income of the shift to tariffication. That is why I'm proposing the decoupled safety nets. These are like an unconditional cash transfer,
Yeah,
Mr.
but
President.
the number one is like a conditional cash transfer. It's just that we are not indicating the amount because we cannot really predict what amount we're talking about. So
What you're saying is the proposal for a
Is-
number 5
is
is a
number
redundancy of number 1,
Number
except
one.
that the proponent is
Indicating an
indicating amounts.
Oo.
So
And
that's the
we cannot
difference.
promise that there will be such amount of money. She's talking of 10 billion pesos. That is the whole Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund, which we have allocated, and we are just allocating the excess.
As a partial achievement of the original proposed amendment, good sponsor, and by way of at least prioritizing those
Yes,
who would be hardest hit, especially at the outset of the tariffication.
Maybe you can add something in number 1.
Perhaps, Mr. President, and maybe in the spirit of prioritizing compensation for the income loss of farmers farming 2 hectares and below, regardless of whether they continue farming rice or not.
Maybe you can make amendment to number 1, because that is rice farmer financial assistance. That's the provision. So if you would want to make some clarification there, it's welcome, but let's not put an amount because we cannot promise that amount.
Madam Sponsor, I will add the matter of prioritizing income
Yeah,
loss for
that's okay.
farmers farming 2 hectares and below to number 1.
Yes.
But I
yes.
would like to make an appeal to mention the amount, because without this, Madam Sponsor,
We cannot
42,000 farming families will fall into poverty. And I believe I submitted the tables to you showing that with different levels of tariffication, so many tens of thousands of families would fall into poverty among currently rice farming families, Madam Sponsor.
We can accept an amendment to 1 with clarification on priorities, but we cannot really put the amount because that's be expecting something which might not happen. It will create some false hope. If the amount is that much, then we will implement as such.
I beg your pardon, Madam Sponsor.
So
we
you
will
can
implement
make
as
an
such if the
amendment
amount is
in
that
number
much.
1
Yes.
to prioritize who will be given. Para we can prioritize what you want to prioritize in number 1 of page 13. So maybe you can
Madam
amend
Sponsor,
it.
yes. I hear you, Madam Sponsor. I would like to ask, through the indulgence of the presiding officer, that if Senator Recto would agree that half of the excess of the 10 billion be allocated to number 1, rice farmer financial assistance, with the additional amendment that farming families of 2 hectares and below will be prioritized. Half of the excess of the 10 billion, Madam Sponsor.
Session suspended for a minute.
So,
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Sponsor. I will propose an amendment to number 1, rice farmer financial assistance, to give priority to those farming families to be most affected by the shift to tariffication, specifically those farming 2 hectares and below.
a portion, okay. Can we read it this way? A portion of the excess rice tariff revenue should be released to the DA and shall be used for providing direct financial assistance to rice farmers who are
Farming 2 hectares and below, Madam
farming 2
Sponsor,
hectares and below,
regardless of whether they continue farming rice or not.
regardless whether they continue farming rice or not, as compensation for the projected reduction or loss of farm income arising from the tariffication of the quantitative import restrictions on rice. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, Madam Sponsor, I have no objection to that. But there is also number 4 on crop diversification.
Yes, Mr. President, then that's an additional reassurance that even though my proposed amendment that half of the excess of the 10 billion be allocated to number 1, then those original rice farmers who may choose, because of tariffication of rice, to shift to other crops may also possibly receive additional assistance through the number 4
So we are
item,
not
crop
accepting the
diversification
half.
program.
We are just saying
Yes, I
that
understand, Madam
priorities, they
Sponsor.
are priorities. Is that
Understood,
okay
Mr.
with you?
No
President.
objection.
No objection. So we accept the amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam Sponsor. My next proposed amendment, Madam Sponsor, after this number 1 to 4, to insert a new paragraph that reads, in the beginning of 2023, NEDA, DA, and the Office of the NAPSI Farmer Sector Representative shall cause an independent interagency evaluation of RCEF to be conducted and completed within that year in time for the budget call for 2025.
No, there we inserted a provision that there will be a review after 3 years. There is already a review after 3 years and another one after 6 years.
I
It's
understand,
provided
Madam
for.
President. Madam Sponsor, I will no longer propose an amendment
Yeah,
in this
okay.
portion. Next, Madam Sponsor, well, just to make it of record, I had submitted this to the good sponsor that in all the percentages of the allocation of the
10 billion.
of the RCEF, that for flexibility's sake, in letters A to D, to insert up to. So in letter A, insert up to 50%. Letter B, insert up to 30%. Letter C, insert up to 10%. And letter D, insert up to 10%. So not also proposing anymore to delete the original percentages, but allowing language that will, introducing language that will allow for flexibility in the assignment of percentages, given that such may require to be adjusted year on year, Madam Sponsor.
I think there is really, there will really be an, what do you call that we don't have to put that up to, because they will really work that this will be given to the farmers. And if ever there is underspending here, I think it will go back to the general fund or to the provision for the excess of tariff. So we don't have to put this. They will try to implement this, and if they cannot implement this well, then there will be excess, and that will go to your fund.
Madam Sponsor, I would appeal in the same way that...
Because if you will say up to, then you are not really spending the 10 billion, di ba? You are, as if you are saying that we cannot spend the 10 billion. I think we will be able to spend the 10 billion because we have enumerated the number of provinces, 57 of them, and number of towns, 1,100, to be the beneficiary of this mechanization and seeds. And I think the money is not even enough to give to all of them.
Madam Sponsor.
So we have enumerated and we have attached the copy of the names of provinces and the names of towns who will be beneficiaries of this fund. And if ever our government cannot spend this, then there is no waste because it can be given to, it can go to the excess fund and it can be used for other purposes. So I don't think we have to put that up to. It will create confusion. We are not bent on spending the 10 billion to help the farmers.
Madam Sponsor, by way of an appeal...
What is the reason for that up to?
Here, Madam Sponsor. The reason for this is in the same way that we left a wide flexibility in the letter A on rice farmer financial assistance, no longer including a set percentage of 50%. In the same way here, for flexibility, space for adjustments, and linking with the roadmap, which may incorporate other items. So we still have the percentages there as the indicative percentages.
The percentages are 50% for mechanization,
Yes.
30% for seeds, 10% for credit, and 10% for rice extension services.
And
so you're talking of 30% for what? Rice mechanization? It's 50%
Yes.
for mechanization. Why do we have to put up to when we are really bent on spending this because we need this? In fact, this may not be enough to give to the 1,100 rice-producing towns in the Philippines. So, and if we are not able to spend this, then it will go to the excess, and then you can use it for your farmers assistance program, which you want to implement also. So I don't think we have to put that up to.
Actually, Madam Sponsor, in addition to the flexibility aspect, which we retained in the letter A on rice farmer financial assistance, Madam Sponsor, just to, by way of explanation, I have a subsequent proposed amendment to insert a new subletter E, which will read, up to 40% for financing other competitiveness enhancement programs to be determined by the rice industry roadmap. So this is what I meant that...
ABC, letter
E, yes, Madam Sponsor, which is why it's up to, meaning that there are still those indicative percentages, 50, 30, 10, 10, but up to because based on the roadmap, such percentages may be adjusted year on year. To include other competitiveness enhancement programs.
We cannot accept. We have studied this very well. That's why we chose this mechanization, this rice seed development, credit assistance. This is based on study, and we cannot accept. In excess of this, I can accept, but this one, I am very definite on this.
So may I just request, Mr. President, a copy of the study from the good sponsor?
Yeah, PIDS study.
PIDS study.
It's a study why our farmers are not field rice study. No, it's a lack of financial literacy, lack of mechanization, lack of technology, and lack of access to cheap credit. That's the reasons why they are not competitive and they are not profitable.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Actually, we also use the PID study as one of the bases for formulating this proposed amendment. But I accept if the Madam Sponsor cannot
Thank you
accept
very
at
much.
this point in time.
Thank you very much.
Next proposed amendment, Mr. President, good sponsor, on I'm not sure now if I'm referring to the correct page because the pages are moving. But on my clean copy as of November 13, page 10, lines 20, on line 20, after the amount collected shall be released directly to the implementing agencies as provided for in this law, insert based on the objectives and plans of the rice industry roadmap. I so move, Madam Sponsor.
Can you repeat it again, please?
Yes, Madam Sponsor. I propose that on page 10, line
Page 10,
20,
Line 20.
yes, Mr. President, the line would read, the amount collected shall be released directly.
Allocated.
Shall be allocated directly. The amount
The amount allocated
shall be released directly to the implementing agencies as provided for in this law, and then insert based on the objectives and plans of the rice industry roadmap.
We are not really using the roadmap here. Di ba we are not using the roadmap? Oh.
But I understand, Madam Sponsor,
Okay
that the
lang
roadmap
sa'yo.
is mentioned in several places in the bill. So it seems
Okay,
only
ano,
consistent to
can I
mention
accept
them in
that na
this
ilagay yung roadmap?
part of the bill, Madam Sponsor.
Okay, we accept.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Next amendment.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next proposed amendment on page 14, section 30, on the rice industry roadmap, line 9, after the word including, delete rice farmer representatives, and in its place insert National Anti-Poverty Council or NAPC Farmers Sectoral Council representatives.
Will
Mr.
you
President.
again say the page?
Yes,
Page
Mr. President.
14.
It's page
Page
14, section
Line-
15, line 30.
Section 15,
Line
line 30.
Line 30.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor.
Oh,
And I propose that after the word including, delete the
where
words.
is the word including the?
After the word including, line 34. Page 14, line 34.
The proponent says line 30. I cannot find including in line
Yeah,
30.
line 34. Can you just read it, Senator?
Yes, ma'am.
It's page 14, line 34.
You're pertaining to the rice industry roadmap?
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
President.
All right, so what is the proposed amendment? The
Rice
sponsor
industry
knows where you want it.
roadmap. Okay. Yes, Madam Sponsor. Line 14, page,
Page 14,
I'm
line
sorry,
30.
page 14,
Line 30.
All right, so now it's line 30 in my copy. It's
Rice
getting 34.
industry roadmap.
Yes. After the word including,
On line 34.
yes, Mr. President, delete the words rice farmer representatives and instead include in its place that it should read National Anti-Poverty Council, NAPC, Farmers Sectoral Council representatives, Madam Sponsor. Because the NAPC farmer representatives already have a process for their election, and so would well serve
Because
on the rice
what it
industry
says
roadmap.
here, together, upon the effectivity of this act, the DA, together with the NEDA, Department of Finance, DBM, DAR, National Irrigation Administration, TESDA, Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation, and other government agencies concerned, including rice farmer representative. Why don't we include na lang let's not remove the farmer representative. Let's just include in government if you want to include NAPC.
Actually, Madam Sponsor,
Kasi
I'm not
nandito with
proposing-
NEDA, Department of Finance, DBM, DAR, National Irrigation Administration, TESDA, PCIC, and other government agencies. We include na lang NAPC there. Kasi
Yes.
they are all government agencies.
I'm not
And let's not remove the rice farmer representative, okay?
Yes, I'm not proposing to remove representatives of the farmers, Madam Sponsor, but to include the NAPSI Farmer
We
Sectoral
include
Council
after
representatives who
PCIC.
are appointed by the President.
We can include NAPSI after Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation, comma, NAPSI. Ano ba yun?
Yes, Madam Sponsor. So not just NAPSI, but the NAPSI Farmer Sectoral Council representatives. Because they are already
Marami naman.
elected by the
Let's just
farmers,
include
appointed by the
NAPSI,
President.
and if they want to bring people there, then bring people there. If they are part of NAPSI.
They are part of
NAPSI. You
Madam
said
President.
I think the
NAPSI.
sponsor is correct. When you say NAPSI, it's everything under NAPSI
Can
is
come.
included.
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
You don't
President.
have to enumerate the other council or whatever under NAPSI that
Yes,
you're
Mr.
mentioning.
President, I'm only trying to specify the NAPSI Farmer Sectoral Council.
So we will
representative.
remove NAPSI. We
No,
will just
correct.
put NAPSI Farmers Sectoral Representative.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor.
After PCIC. Okay, we include after PCIC the NAPSI Farmers Sectoral Representative. We
Yes.
accept.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor.
All right. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Still on that section on the rice industry roadmap, on the principles governing the development and implementation of the roadmap for the rice industry, on page 15, line 27, number 6, after the word responsible, insert the word participatory, so that it would read, set up responsible, participatory, and effective governance mechanisms.
Okay. We accept.
Thank you, Madam
Accepted. Any
Sponsor.
objection? Amendment is adopted.
Then additional, next proposed amendment, Madam Sponsor, insert an additional number 7 after that number 6. Number 7 to read, address impact of income loss caused by rice tariffication.
Okay, we accept.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Then, after that number 7, Madam Sponsor, before the section 16, before the section 18, on page 15, line 29, insert the paragraph, the rice industry roadmap shall be implemented through a complementation of the Department of Agriculture's rice sector programs as funded by the GAA and the Rice Enhancement Fund funded under this Act. I so move, Madam Sponsor.
Accept.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor.
You accepted?
Yes, accept.
Accepted. Any objection? There being none, amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next, proposed amendment on page 6, line 16, letter C, for non-ASEAN member states.
Page 6?
Yes, Mr. President. Page 6, letter C.
What?
On page 6, letter C, Madam Sponsor, for rice imports originating from non-ASEAN WTO member states.
You're trying to confuse me, huh?
Number 6.
You go to 10,
what
14,
part of
then now
number
6.
6?
Please excuse me, Mr. President. I got a bit confused also by the changing pages of our
What in
different
page
clean copies.
6?
All right, page 6.
Yes, Mr. President. Page
Line-
6, line 16, letter C.
Okay, for rice imports originating from non-Asian WTO member states.
Yes, Madam Sponsor. To make explicit on the out-quota tariff rate calculated in accordance with paragraph 10 of Annex 5, Section B, the figure 180% outbound rate. And I would like to remind the good sponsor that she accepted, or she indicated that she would accept such a proposed amendment at the proper time, since this is allowed by WTO.
So
And incidentally,
what
it's in
line
the
do you
House.
want that included?
Line...
Okay. We accept, but we word it like this.
Yes, Madam
The
Sponsor.
out quota tariff rate is 180% for tariff equivalent calculated in accordance with the paragraph 10 of the Annex 5, Section B of the WTO Agreement on Agriculture upon the expiration of the waiver relating to the special treatment for rice of the Philippines shall apply.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. That's
So it's
exactly
on line 17.
or
Yes.
actually line 18, Mr. President.
This one is 16.
Ah.
The rice imports originating from non-Asian WTO members. The out quota tariff rate at line 18
Yes, line 18, Mr.
is
Good Sponsor.
is 180% or the equivalent calculated in accordance with paragraph 10 of Annex 5, Section
All right,
B.
so it's between
Okay.
17 and 18.
Yeah.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last proposed amendment, good sponsor. Well, I had mentioned this to the good sponsor in interpellation, a proposed amendment on transition to publicly regulated private buffer stocks. But I may not have to propose it because in earlier discussions here at plenary, the good sponsor repeatedly said that NFA should not import rice anymore. That leaves a question in our mind, how then will NFA secure its buffer stocks, especially when domestic supplies are not enough? I ask this good sponsor because I'm assuming that open bidding involving both domestic and foreign suppliers
No more. It's
will be-
liberalized.
Sorry? Yes.
It's liberalized as long as they pay tariff.
and
There will be no more bidding. Di ba? That's importation. Liberalized as long as you pay tariff.
But then, at the same time, they will be competing against each other at all times.
No, they will be the one. That's their risk. They compete in the open market. We cannot regulate. This is
Yes.
liberalized importation with tariff.
Good sponsor, I'm asking only specifically about NFA buffer stocking.
No, NFA will buy from the locals. It cannot import.
Will no longer be allowed to
even for buffer
import.
stocking.
They will no longer be allowed to import. That's the, I think, the manifestation of the sponsor.
Yes, Mr. President. So even for disaster areas or
They can import, but that is more on during emergencies.
for emergency.
We
So-
are removing talaga the right. That's where the problem is. So they're controlling the rice. That's why it's going up. Hindi ba sinabi natin na naku-confuse sila? Kaya ayaw na natin silang mag-import.
So you're saying, Your Honor, that this bill is
Discouraging
addressing the problem.
Yes,
So
the
let us not-
NFA will not be allowed to really import. They will buy from the local.
So let us not empower them again also in the
To
bill.
import because they, as we said, there is confusion of what they should do. Let's let them concentrate on buying rice from the local so that
The local farmers will
yes,
benefit
so that
more.
you're concerned that the local farmers will have a hard time because of this. That can be addressed by NFA by buying from the locals.
So there is a bias for our Filipino rice
On
farmers.
the part of NFA. And that is good
Madam
for
Sponsor,
the locals.
could the good sponsor just direct me to where in the bill it is written that NFA may not import even for the buffer stocking, even for emergency or disaster purposes, Madam Sponsor?
Asan yung tinanggal na natin ang power ng NFA? Di ba pinag-usapan na natin yun? Ito.
For example, there is still in
Page
our
what?
definition of terms the buffer stock. So to be used for emergency situations and to sustain the disaster relief programs of the government during natural or man-made calamity. So
Okay.
how is this to be built up and maintained, good sponsor?
Ito, Section 8, Maintenance of Rice Buffer Stock. Page 8, The NFA shall, in accordance with the rules and regulations and procedures to be promulgated, maintain sufficient rice buffer stock.
So, kasi hindi po kayo. So, but, Madam Sponsor, there is nothing written in the bill prohibiting NFA to import for buffer stocking.
Yeah, but we discussed.
Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, there is a maintenance, there is a provision here that is open-ended. But we will like to make it easier for NFA to buy from the local instead of importing, unless there is really an emergency.
All right, Madam Sponsor. In which case, Mr. President, good sponsor, I will still propose my last proposed amendment on a transition to publicly regulated private buffer stocks, which I had discussed with the good sponsor in interpellation. If you would bear with me, it's 5 short paragraphs. The NFA shall...
What page?
This, Mr.
This
President...
is additional. This is not in
additional.
our bill.
It's not yet in the bill, but if it would be accepted by the good sponsor, it would be probably in Section 10 on maintenance of rice buffer stock on page 8, good sponsor. And the proposed amendment reads this way. The NFA shall be allowed to import rice stocks to build up a mandatory buffer stock as determined by the NEDA Secretary, provided that local traders shall be allowed to bid for the supplies proposed to be secured directly by NFA from foreign suppliers through a Swiss challenge. The foreign suppliers may match such bids by domestic traders. Within 2 months of the passage of this act, the NFA shall issue instructions to its procurement unit to operationalize the procedures for this Swiss challenge.
I cannot accept that amendment. That has been our problem ever since.
NFA.
That importation of rice of the NFA, and we are bringing it back.
Do I take it, Madam Sponsor, Your Honor, that the bill practically clips the wings of NFA? Correct. So
Yes,
let's not
yes.
empower them.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you very much, good sponsor.
All right. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, there are no longer any members that would like to propose any amendments. We'd like to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? There being none, period of amendment is closed.
Mr. President, we'd like to move for the second reading approval of the measure. I so move.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Senate Bill 1998 is approved on second reading.
Mr. President, this being a certified measure, may we just ask the quorum bell be open to get our colleagues to the floor so that we can have a roll call vote at the proper time, Mr. President. May I ask for a 1 minute? Or, Mr. President, for the meantime, while we are waiting our colleagues, may we suspend consideration of the measure to tackle the measure of Senator Sani Angara.
All right.
I so move, Mr. President.
And instruct the Sergeant-at-Arms to bring to the floor
Our
the
colleagues.
members of the members who are within the building.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the meantime, we suspend consideration of the measure.
Any objection? There being none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration on Senate Bill number 8055. I so move, Mr. President.
8055.
This is the province of Palawan.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved. The motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we recognize the sponsor and the gentleman, Senator Trillanes, to propose his amendment or questions.
Senator Sani Angara is recognized to continue the sponsorship of the measure, to continue interpellation. Senator Sani Trillanes is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Would the sponsor, the gentleman from Aurora Province, yield for some questions, Mr. President? Thank you. Most willingly to my tokayo and idol of the soldiers, Senator Trillanes.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. My first question regarding the bill before us is, can the sponsor enlighten us regarding the rationale behind this division of the Palawan province, Mr. President?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. President, the bill seeks to create 3 new provinces by dividing Palawan into Palawan del Norte, Palawan Oriental, and Palawan del Sur. And it is to improve the delivery of basic services and improve the quality of life of Palaweños. As our colleague Senator Risa said earlier, there's a 55% poverty rate, and hopefully the provincial governments to be created may make a dent on that and have a more effective delivery of services. Given the size, Palawan is as big or even bigger than the Calabarzon region, Your Honor, Mr. President. And to fight poverty and to raise standards of living, we hope that the 3 new provincial governments to be created could do a good job of fighting poverty. So that is the reason, Your Honor.
So, just to be clarified, what the sponsor is saying is that having 3 provincial governments would better address the problems of the province, because right now the area is too big to be handled by one provincial government. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor, Mr. President. Palawan is an archipelago of 1,800 islands. So 1 in 4 islands of the country are in Palawan, and the northernmost island is visible from Mindoro province, and the southernmost island is near Sabah in Malaysia. So the mainland is 500 kilometers long, and that's the distance from Manila to Tuguegarao, Cagayan. So ganun po kalaki ang probinsya. Kaya kahit magaling po ang nakapong mga opisyal ng Palawan, talagang nahihirapan sila dun sa delivery of basic services, Your Honor.
Well, I can imagine that, Mr. President, that a sitting governor would have to traverse that kind of area in order to just oversee the needs of his constituents. Well, my next question, Mr. President, is how will this division of Palawan affect the other provinces in relation to their internal revenue allotment, Mr. President?
There is a net decrease for Isabela of 1.12 million and for Batanes of 14.6 million. But this does not take into account the increase in the pie, because the ERA pie is increasing by 11% every year, Your Honor. So although if we compute it today based on 2023 computations, this ERA of these provinces will go down. It will also have a net increase because the total pie is increasing by at least 11% on the average.
So, in short, even the people of Isabela and Batanes, as mentioned, would not be negatively affected by the decrease in ERA. Is that what the sponsor is saying?
Tingin ko hindi naman po, Your Honor, because with respect to municipalities, cities, barangays, there is no diminution of the internal revenue allotment. And even the League of Provinces of the Philippines issued a statement of support for the passage of this measure, Your Honor.
Okay. My next question is, can the sponsor brief us about the actual benefits of the Palaweños in relation to this division, in addition to what was previously mentioned, Mr. President?
Yes, I would be happy to do so. So in addition to the more efficient delivery, Your Honor, Mr. President, I think it would be easier for constituents within the 3 provinces to be created to have access to their public officials and to the provincial government. especially for those from the remote barrios or barangays. And the ratio of government employees to constituents covered will also increase. And this is, again, in the hope that they will be better able to deliver basic government services to the Palaweños.
Okay, just to be clear, are the Palaweños in favor of this division, Mr. President?
I believe so, Mr. President, Your Honor, because the three congressmen who are representing the Palaweños were unanimous in their desire to create these three provinces, and the provincial and municipal officials were also supportive. But the true test is the plebiscite to be held after we approve and the House approves the measure. So that will be the true test. But as of now, in answer to His Honor's query, I would say yes, I believe they are in favor.
Okay. In relation to some environmental concerns, is there a basis for such concerns, Mr. President? Would this division affect affect the environmental conditions of Palawan?
Again, I believe it will result in it will have a positive result, Your Honor, Mr. President, because the provincial governments will be better able to police the environment or protect the environment, given the smaller scope of their jurisdiction and the increased personnel of the provincial governments, as compared to just one provincial government covering the entire or the huge island of Palawan. You will now have three provincial governments, each with their own foot soldiers, so to speak, including the provincial environment or PENRO, who could cover and then supervise the protection of the environment, Your Honor.
Okay, my last question, Mr. President, is moving forward, just like to be enlightened by the good sponsor as the chairman of the Committee on Local Government. Where do we draw the line in as far as dividing provinces is concerned? Because I foresee that at some point in the future, some provinces may take the initiative also in trying to divide their provinces. So where do we draw the line, Mr. President?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mr. President, because I've been hearing rumblings of on the ground that some provinces and some officials also want to divide their provinces. But I think at the end of the day, Your Honor, Mr. President, we fall back on the local government code and the requirements for the law, under the law, for income 20 million, for population 250,000 inhabitants, and for land area 2,000 square kilometers. So these are the bare minimum requirements for creating or dividing provinces, no? And that's also compliant with Article 10 of the Constitution. But then again, we must also consider the policy implications and perhaps take it on a case-to-case basis. In the case of Palawan, it's even bigger than Cavite, Batangas, Quezon, Rizal combined. So I think there's a strong case there for the division, Your Honor. But as long as it complies with the law, at the bare minimum, then it's at least merits our consideration. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the other factors also, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, with that, Mr. President, I would like to terminate my interpellation, and I would like to congratulate the good sponsor and thank him as well for enlightening this presentation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to thank the gentleman from Magdalo for his very incisive and important and questions which I think are positive because they've been put on the record, and our kababayans can know why we are doing or pushing for this bill. We thank him for his questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, gentlemen. Majority Leader?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. With that, there are no further questions. We move to close the period of interpellation.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is carried.
Mr. President, I move that we, are there being any amendments to the measure? May we ask the sponsor Mr. President, if there are any amendments.
Yes, there are amendments.
We move to
Mr.
open the
President.
period of amendments, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is carried.
Thank you to our good-looking presiding officer, Mr. President. On the first amendment, the good, also the good-looking gentleman on the floor and the majority leader.
There are some objections, Your Honor, so...
Because there's better-looking ones.
On page,
The better-looking one is on his way to his rostrum.
thank you, Mr. President. On page 1, line 9, to insert a new sentence, the province of Palawan del Sur shall be the mother province. I so move.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 3, line 5, after the word Palawan, to insert a period and to delete the succeeding sentences up to line 24.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
On page 6, line 3, after the word until, to delete the phrase the expiration of their term of office, and in lieu thereof to insert the phrase new representatives shall have been duly elected, qualified, and assumed office. So move.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
On the same page, Mr. President, line 11, after the word jurisdiction, to delete the entire sentence up to line 18. So move.
Any objection? Amendment is approved.
On page 8, Mr. President, to delete lines 19 to 26.
Any objection? Chair hears none, amendment is approved.
On page 10, Mr. President, after line 5, to insert a new paragraph to read as follows. Elective and appointive provincial officials shall receive such compensation, allowances, and other emoluments as may be determined by law or ordinance, subject to the budgetary limitations on personal services prescribed under Title V, Book 2 of this Code, provided that no increase in compensation shall take effect until after the expiration of the full term of all the elective officials approving such increase. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
Mr. President, on page 10, to delete lines 14 to 21. So move.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
On page 19, to delete lines 20 to 26. So move.
20, 26, 19. Any objection? Chair hears none, amendment is approved.
On page 26, after line 18, Mr. President, to insert a new paragraph to read as follows. Section B, the regular members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan and the sectoral representatives shall be elected in the manner as provided for by law and shall receive a monthly compensation corresponding to salary grade 27 as prescribed under the Revised Compensation and Position Classification Act of 1989 as amended and the implementing guidelines issued pursuant thereto. So move.
Any objection? Chair hears none, amendment is approved.
On page 27, line 1, Mr. President, after the word include, to insert the phrase, but shall not be limited to. So move.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
On the same page, line 2, page 27, in the word environment, to add the letters AL to read as environmental.
Any objection? There being none, amendment approved.
On the same page, also page 27, line 24, Mr. President, after the word of, to replace the word there with the phrase his or her. So move.
Any objection? Chair hears none, amendment approved.
On page 28, line 4, in the word stocks, to delete the second letter S to read as stock. So move.
Any objection? No objection, amendment approved.
On page 30, line 17 to 27, after the section title, to delete the entire paragraph and replace it with a new paragraph to read as follows. Section A, every ordinance enacted by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan shall be presented to the provincial governor. If the provincial governor approves the same, he shall affix his signature on each and every page thereof. Otherwise, he shall veto it and return the same with his objections to the Sanggunian, which may proceed to reconsider the same. The Sanggunian may override the veto of the provincial governor by 2/3 vote of all its members, thereby making the ordinance or resolution effective for all legal intents and purposes. So move.
No objection, amendment approved.
Mr. President, on page 32, line 2, after the word governor, to delete the phrase provided that in case of the formers and in lieu thereof insert the phrase or in case of his or her. So move.
Any objection? Amendment approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the same page, line 7, after the word governor, to delete the phrase provided that in case of the former's permanent incapacity, in lieu thereof to insert the phrase or in case of his or her permanent disability. I so move.
No objection. Amendment approved.
On page 38, line 15, after the word university, to insert the phrase a duly registered and licensed real estate service practitioner as provided for in Section 30 of Republic Act 9646 or the Real Estate Services Act of the Philippines. So move.
No objection. Amendment approved.
On page 41, Mr. President, after line 18, to insert a new paragraph to read as follows: the incumbent chief accountant in the office of the treasurer shall be given preference in the appointment to the positions of accountant. So move.
No objection. Amendment approved.
On page 42, after line 25, to insert a new paragraph to read as follows: Section D, the appropriations for personal services of the budget officer provided under the Department of Budget and Management shall, upon effectivity of this code, be transferred to the local government unit concerned. Thereafter, the appropriations for personal services of the budget officer shall be provided for in full in the budget of the local government unit. So move, Mr. President.
No objection. Amendment approved. Majority Leader.
On page 43, line 5, after the word university, to insert the phrase a duly registered and licensed environmental planner as provided for in Section 34 of Republic Act 10587 or the Environmental Planning Act of 2013. So move.
No objection. Amendment approved.
On page 69, lines 6 to 25, to delete the entire Section 48 and insert a new Section 48 read as follows: Section 48, the jail service there shall be established and maintained in the province within 2 months upon the commencement of the corporate existence of the new province by the Department of Interior and Local Government, DILG, through the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, BJMP, a secure, clean, adequately equipped, and sanitary district jail for the custody and safekeeping of prisoners, any fugitive from justice, or person detained awaiting investigation or trial, and or retransferred to the National Penitentiary, and or violent mentally ill person who endangers himself or the safety of others, duly certified as such by the proper medical health officer, pending the transfer to a mental institution. The provincial government shall provide the necessary land or site for the establishment of district jails. So move, Mr. President.
No objection. Amendment approved.
On page 71, line 4, to replace the year 2022 with 2020. So move.
Any objection?
That's the last amendment, Mr. President, is on page 71, line 6, to replace the word Comelec with the phrase present province of Palawan. So move.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. I thank my colleagues for this wonderful market atmosphere that we have right now.
Are you thanking them for budgeting you this whole time? Anyway, Mr. President, with that, we'd like to move to close the period of amendments for the said measure.
Any objection? Chair is none. Period of amendment. That is the committee amendment. Committee amendment.
Yes, just the committee amendment, Mr. President.
Yes,
we move to open the period of
individual amendments. Oh, Senator Tiveros recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. After clarifying with a good sponsor that this portion of Section 48 on the jail service had not been deleted, I would like to respectfully propose to amend it by way of deleting the mention of violent, mentally ill person who endangers himself or the safety of others, duly certified as such by the proper medical officer, pending the transfer to a mental institution, so that this bill will remain consistent with the mental health law, Mr. President.
accept,
I so
Mr.
move, good
President.
sponsor.
Okay.
Thank you, good sponsor.
Any objection? There being none, proposed amendment is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Risa.
Right.
Thank you.
Move, close the period of individual
Yes,
amendments.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Any objection? Motion approved.
With no other amendments, Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 8055. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, 8055 is hereby approved in second reading.
Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of the same.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you, dear colleagues, Mr. President and Majority Leader, and our colleagues from the minority as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to resume consideration on Senate Bill number 1998. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, consideration is in order.
Mr. President, this measure is a certified measure. Therefore, we can do away with the 3-day rule. May we request the Secretary to read the President's certification?
Secretary will read the first certification of the President.
October 10, 2018, Senator Vicente C. Soto, the third Senate President, the Philippine Senate, Pasay City. Mr. Senate President, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of Senate Bill Number 1998 entitled, An Act Replacing the Quantitative Import Restrictions on Rice with Tariffs, Lifting the Quantitative Export Restrictions on Rice, and Creating the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 8178 as amended by Republic Act Number 9496 and as further amended by Republic Act Number 10848 and for other purposes to address the urgent need to improve availability of rice in the country, prevent artificial rice shortage, reduce the prices of rice in the market, and curtail the prevalence of corruption and cartel domination in the rice industry. Best regards, very truly yours, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I move that we vote on third and final reading on Senate Bill Number 1998 and request for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct a roll call vote. Read the title of the measure.
An act liberalizing the importation, exportation, and trading of rice, lifting for the purpose the quantitative import restriction on rice and for other purposes. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Onasan, Ontiveros, Lacson, Legarda, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 14 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention, Senate Bill 1998 is approved on third reading.
Congratulations, Mr. President, on the sponsor for the several weeks of sponsorship of this measure. Mr. President, before we adjourn, we have just a few more housekeeping measures. We are in receipt of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill Number 1305 and House Bill Number 4113. This is the 105-day expanded maternity leave law. Mr. President, I move that we consider as the said bicameral committee.
Any objection? There being none, consideration is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize. May we just ask our colleagues to calm down, Mr. President, so that we can. We have not adjourned yet, Mr. President. We have not adjourned yet. May I ask our colleagues,
report is in order. We recognize Senator Ontiveros.
Yes, Mr. President, may we recognize the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, good Majority Leader. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I have the distinct honor and privilege to submit to this chamber the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill Number 1305 and House Bill Number 4113, allowing Filipino women to avail of a 105-day expanded maternity leave. Mr. President, I'd like to move that the entire joint explanatory statement of the Bicameral Conference Committee be spread into the records. Upon reconsideration, Mr. President.
Motion to insert into the records. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon reconsideration of the BICAM report, the Bicameral Conference Committee agreed to delete the provision exempting maternity leave benefit from income tax, Section 6, and the appropriations provision, Section 20. All other provisions are maintained. Bit-bit ang tinig ng milyong-milyong manggagawang kababaihan, Mr. President, umaasa ang inyong lingkod sa tuluyang pagsasabatas ng mahalagang panukalang ito. Marami pong salamat.
Majority Leader.
With that, Mr. President, move to adopt and ratify the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill Number 1305 and House Bill Number 4113. I so move.
Any objection? There being none, Bicameral Conference Committee report is hereby adopted.
Just some guests that we'd like to recognize, Mr. President. We have 30 barangay captains led by ABC President Honorable Isagani La Rosa from Rosario, Batangas with us here today. I think they're over there.
Yes, welcome to the Senate, the officials from Rosario, Batangas.
Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed with the Senate President's designation of the Senate Conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1749 and House Bill number 725. This is the Land Transportation Terminal Stations.
The following members are hereby designated as conferees. Senator Grace Poe as chairperson. Members Recto, Ejercito, Escudero, Aquino IV on the part of the minority.
And Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed with the Senate President's designation of the Senate Conferees on the BICAM Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1971 and House Bill number 6938. This is the Child Safety in Motor Vehicles Act.
Following members are hereby designated as conferees. Senator J.B. Ejercito as chairman. Members Recto, Villanueva, Hontiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, November 19, 2018. I so move.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, November 19, 2018.